Welcome back to Banging the Can, the Houston sports show that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, Ross Bolen, and of course, we followed up one of the best Sundays in Houston sports history, where the Astros fell ass backwards into another division championship, and the Texans beat the brakes off the Steelers with an extremely disappointing Sunday, as the Texans lost a very winnable game to the Atlanta Falcons, and the Astros dropped Game 2 of the ALDS to the Minnesota Twins. Before we jump into all that, call the Banging the Can voicemail hotline at 888-203-2339 with your reactions to both the Texans-Falcons game and the situation with the Astros being 1-1 headed to Minnesota. 888-203-2339. Save it in your phone. Anytime you are struck by a Houston sports take, call the hotline. Leave a voicemail. It's a 2-minute limit before it cuts you off, so be succinct, be clear. Don't be in an elevator. Don't be in your truck with the windows down. 888-203-2339. Best calls get played on the show, and I will respond to them in turn. Let's start with the Astros. Big Game 1 win. Obviously, extremely important to come out and set the tone in Game 1. Which, who other than Jose Altuve, of course, goes and gets the job done. First pitch, home run, 1-0 Astros. Great start. Shaky first inning for Verlander, which is something we've come to expect as Astros fans, right? Justin Verlander often gives up a dinger in the first or second inning, gets into some trouble. Either he fights his way out of it, or he gives up a couple of runs, and then even still, he might settle in for another 5-6 innings. In this game, he got into some trouble. First inning, Justin Verlander fights through it, gets out of it, settles in, deals for 6 innings of scoreless baseball. Of course, Altuve, like I said, that first pitch home run, awesome. It was even better because the commentators were talking about how the Twins pitcher is like 6'9", and most guys haven't seen, that type of release angle in terms of the ball coming out of his hand down toward the plate. Altuve's a smaller guy. Obviously, that's exacerbated. And then he hit a home run on the first pitch. So that was great. That was great. Yordan was great. Went yard twice. Bats were there. Energy was there. There were a couple of things in Minute Maid Park that were questionable, but we'll get to those in a moment. First, to say, the team looked like they were coming out and playing October baseball with the right level of energy, obviously with some sense of urgency. You don't want to lose Game 1 at home. You don't want to do it. Mathematically, bad things happen in terms of your odds to win the series if you drop Game 1 at home, or Game 1 period, really. But it wasn't a bad game. Hector Neris came in that 7th inning and gave up 4 runs. And that was not great. Not great to see, especially because Hector has been so reliable, really for his entire tenure as an Astro. It was one of his less productive outings, I think it goes without saying. And that was a little scary. We were up 5-4, and then Yordan went, he hit another home run to make it 6-4. And that was pretty much it, because Abreu and Presley were incredible closing out the game from the bullpen. Abreu came in, picked up the pieces that Hector Neris left behind, got it done, and Presley was vintage postseason Presley. So we took Game 1, and all was well, right? We're all feeling good. Not to say that we aren't still feeling good, but things did not go well in Game 2 on Sunday night. This game was basically a microcosm of our frustrations as Astros fans this season. Bad starting pitching and not enough bats. Framber Valdez was, for lack of a better phrase, a bit of a mess. This is kind of how he was all season long, off and on. He throws a no-hitter, and then he gets shelled. He comes out and derails, pulls it together and has a quality start the next game. Like, you don't really know what you're going to get with Framber right now. It's a mixed bag, and this is not a good time for that to continue. One of my big keys going into the postseason was hoping that that dude has his head screwed on straight so that he is the dominant version of Framber Valdez that we have come to know and love over the past couple seasons. But this year, we got a different version. Something different going on with Framber Valdez, and it's not good. Not different in a good way. I mean, he was missing spots by feet. Feet. Like Maldonado would call for down and away, and he'd throw up and in. At one point, the broadcast crew took the opportunity to actually show a specific pitch where Maldonado very clearly had framed up the bottom left corner of the box. Framber went the opposite direction, like in every possible way, and got hammered. I mean, he just wasn't, he had no control. You could see that he was struggling to find his control, and his poise was questionable, albeit not all that visible, but like when they would zoom in on his face, you could just see. Like they showed him in the dugout at one point, he wasn't meditating. He was, I don't even know what, he looked chaotic. He just didn't have it, which happens with pitchers sometimes, and it's not usually that big of a deal. But like Framber Valdez is supposed to be our ace this year. All right, we picked up Verlander at the trade deadline because the two guys that we expected to carry the team pitching workhorse-wise were not doing it. Framber Valdez and Christian Javier both struggled this season. Huge part of the Astros' struggles all season long, those two guys not being who we thought they would be in 2023. Not good. So we bring in Verlander, but still, you expect that Framber comes out in the postseason and shows a different level. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. He looked like crap. It did not go well. And like I said, microcosm of the season, this game too. Bad pitching, bad starting pitching, not enough bats. Not nearly enough bats. But yeah, speaking of Maldonado, this is the kind of performance that makes having Maldonado in at catcher instead of Yanier Diaz and his significantly more potent bat very painful for fans. This is what has caused that divide in the Astros fan base. People who want to see Diaz the everyday starting catcher and people who understand why Maldonado is the everyday starting catcher. And then Framber Valdez comes out and throws a wrench in the entire argument because it's like, I don't know. This is what makes that call so difficult for Dusty Baker. Because who's to say things wouldn't have gone significantly worse if Diaz is behind home plate? I don't really know. None of us do. But Maldonado, one of the, points in the sales pitch for him being the everyday starting catcher, even with Yanier Diaz and his hot bat available, is that he keeps the pitchers poised. He calls the game in such a way that it vastly improves the team's odds of winning. But this is what I've touched on earlier in the season. Like, he can call the game of his life. If the dude with the ball in his hand doesn't hit the spots, it doesn't make a bit of a fucking difference who's back there calling the game. And in this case, Framber Valdez, it's kind of a double-edged sword. And we get cut both ways if our starting pitching with Maldonado at catcher doesn't get the job done, and then Maldonado can't hit for shit because we're getting hurt on defense and offense by the same situation that could potentially be remedied by letting the other catcher come in. If the pitcher's going to suck anyway, who gives a fuck who's back there, right? I mean, I think that's the argument from that one side of the fan base who's saying it should be Diaz every game. And then there's the side that argues that Maldonado has a vast enough influence on what happens with these guys on the bump that he should be the catcher. But the point is, this type of performance from Framber Valdez is what has made that argument so miserable all season long. And of course, it reared its ugly head in Game 2 of the ALDS. And Yanier has one at-bat through 2 ALDS games now. And that hurts to look at on paper. It hurts. I know it hurts for Dusty too. That's a tough look. I mean, he's one of the best hitters on the team. There's no argument there anymore. But you got to have Michael Brantley, a seasoned postseason veteran, taking those designated hitter at bats. And I mean, I think that makes sense. If you're arguing Maldonado versus Diaz as a catcher, that's one thing. Arguing Brantley versus Diaz as DH is kind of another. Michael Brantley, Uncle Mike, professional hitter. Hitting is what he does. If there's one word to describe Michael Brantley as a hitter, what is it? Professional. So he gets that spot, DH. Makes sense. But then you've just got this extremely potent bat sitting there doing nothing in Yanier Diaz. And that's tough. That's a difficult situation. This was a tough game to watch all around. And it was very reminiscent of a lot of the games in the regular season where we were all just kind of scratching our heads like, what the fuck is this? Who are these guys? Big part of that struggle was Pablo Lopez, Minnesota Twins pitcher. This guy hit all of his spots. He did the opposite of what Framber Valdez did. He was in complete control the entire outing. He is very, very good. Better than I gave him credit for. And he came out and pushed about as well as you could ask a postseason pitcher to push. I think he was the third pitcher in Twins history to go 7 innings and give up 0 runs. And this, not exactly a storied franchise in terms of championships, but the Twins have been around forever. Third pitcher to ever do that. So, Pablo Lopez hurt. I mean, the thing is, sometimes if you want to win baseball games and the other team's pitcher is shoving the way that Pablo Lopez was, you have to step up offensively and find ways to make a guy who is dealing pay anyway. You have to do it. And the Astros did not do that. They did not do that. And then there's Carlos Correa. If you wanted to, this game too was not complicated. You could chalk it up to a few things. 1, Framber Valdez did not have his stuff. 2, Pablo Lopez did have his stuff. And 3, Carlos fucking Correa. And if you didn't see this coming from a mile away, then you probably don't know as much about this team as you should and could. Because, look, booing Carlos Correa in game 1 was another head scratcher for me. I was like, what do we do? Who is in the stands booing the guy that won a World Series with us, was the face of defending the franchise when we were being attacked from every angle from both fans and media after the 2017 scandal, B, and that we did not attempt to bring back, C, we didn't pay Carlos Correa. He didn't say, I don't want to be an Astro anymore. I'm going to go to, greener pastures. That's not what happened. We broke up with him. We broke up with him. He did not break up with us. He didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to boo. And I understand the ignorant fan logic. You go, he used to have on our jersey, and now he has on their jersey. So I recognize that. I'm going to boo. He must have spurned us somehow. That is not what happened. Jim Crane didn't want to give Carlos Correa and his agent the contract that they wanted. So he walked. We didn't offer him enough money. We didn't really try to bring him back. That is an indisputable fact. Carlos Correa did nothing to spurn the city of Houston. And I know there's another argument here. Oh, it's boos of respect because we know what he can do. Are you a fucking idiot? Do you people know what you've done? I blame the boos as much as I blame Framber Valdez for the Game 2 loss. Carlos Correa, did you see him in an Astros jersey? He feeds on booze. It's like gasoline in a car. That's what makes him go. He's already one of the best, and this is not up for debate, one of the best postseason hitters in the history of the sport. I think he's like number 6 all time for RBIs in postseason history? He's 29 years old. And he's 6th on the fucking list with a bunch of other Hall of Famers. And granted, a large part of the reason for his position on that list is because we went to the postseason every single year. And a large part of why we went to the postseason every single year was because of his leadership. Carlos Correa should not be booed in Minute Maid Park. And it's not just, it's a multifaceted argument because in one, you shouldn't be disrespecting him like that. He did not do anything to deserve your boos. He is a legend in Houston forever. So you're an idiot for that reason if you're booing Carlos Correa. And then 2, you literally are making him better. You are fueling one of the best postseason hitters in the history of baseball with your ignorant booing. If you're at the game, if we're lucky enough to have the games come back to Houston, if you're at the next game at Minute Maid Park and the person next to you is booing Carlos Correa, kindly turn to them and say, "Hey, moron, stop. Do you want us to lose the game?" Christ, he lives for the boos. He's fueled by the boos. You're basically helping the Twins win if you boo Carlos Correa. You're essentially a traitor if you're an Astros fan booing Carlos Correa. You're giving him what he needs to step it up to a whole other fucking level, and you saw the results. Game 2 pretty much single-handedly won the game for the Twins on the offensive side of the ball. I cannot wrap my head around this problem. I'm getting DMs from major league players on other squads that I've got, like a Twitter friendship with, asking me, "What are y'all doing booing Correa?" And I'm saying, I don't fucking know. What the shit? It's already been a frustrating season for me as an intelligent, educated Astros fan, with all the bickering and the infighting. And over the past couple weeks, all the nonstop jabbering with Rangers fans. We're not even playing the fucking Rangers. We could be so lucky to get to the ALCS with a chance to play maybe the Rangers, who are currently sitting up 2-0 on the Baltimore Orioles. They won both games in Baltimore, the Rangers did. We didn't win both games at home because our fans are too busy doing the fucking wave, which I'm starting to want to change my mind about again. In general, I'm not anti-wave. I want to be clear. The wave is fine. Keeps the fans energized. If you must do something, do the fucking wave. Don't boo a guy who gets significantly better when you boo. A guy who, by all accounts, was fueled by the boos while he was still on this team. You got to stop the booing. If you're at the stadium and you hear the people booing Carlos, finger wag at them, tell them to shut the fuck up. Stop it. Stop booing. I beg of you. Please stop booing. I know y'all got to hear our players get booed all the time. It's like, we want to boo somebody. Stop it. Fuck. That was so painful to watch. Because every time he came up, I was like, here, he's going to do it again. He's going to do it again. Correa's going to do it again. You know how I knew he was going to do it again? Because I watched him do it time and time again in a fucking Astros jersey. So did you, allegedly, but you're booing? You're booing the man who you know what this dude can do, and you're booing? I wanted to pull all my hair out of my head listening to that shit, just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I could see it in his eyes. He's like, oh yes, give me the booze. Watch this. Fuck. Disastrous decision by the home fans. Inexplicably ignorant. Stop it. Christ almighty. No coverage, by the way, in the Chronicle on this today. I didn't see a single column calling for the fans to stop being idiots. So I guess I'm going to have to do it. Stop being idiots. You cannot boo Carlos Correa. I'm going to move on from this point, but I really do want to spend the rest of the show on it because it's so mind-blowingly dumb. But those were the three things. Game 2. Framber stunk. Pablo crushed. Correa booed. And that was it. That was all it took. Correa had 3 hits. He drove in 3 runs. When you have a first inning RBI and then 2-run single in the 5th. Fucking fueled by booze, man. We did not pay him. He never did anything wrong. He lives for the booze. And this is what he does. This is what Correa does. He's a postseason killer. Stop booing him. Well, obviously, look, we're going to need more than Yordan Alvarez to show up if we want to win a postseason series. That goes without saying, I think. This is just not a good baseball game, game 2. The other thing, this happens. Like, if you, look, I'm down right now because I'm pissed about the booing, and I'm pissed that we can't just, like, you remember when we swept the Yankees, how nice that was last postseason in 2022 when we ended up going on to win the World Series? Those series are so much fun because the stress levels remain so low. When you go 1-1 at home, and I think, look, I'll get to that in a second. When you go 1-1 at home, and now you've created a situation where it's a 3-game series, the first 2 of which are going to be played on the road, that is typically cause for some level of alarm. It's a much more stressful situation, is what I'm trying to say. I don't need more stress in my life. I need less stress in my life. And now we have a very stressful situation brewing in fucking Minnesota. Minnesota. They haven't won a playoff series in like 40 years or some god-awful number, like 16 years, I think is the real number. They just won one, the wild card, and now they're, you know, in a good spot against the defending champion Houston Astros, which I did not really anticipate. So it's a best of 3 now in Minnesota. Now, the upside here, we stunk at Minute Maid Park this year. For whatever reason. In part because I think this team is fueled by booze. And you don't get booed by your own home crowd, do you? So hopefully we get booed in Minnesota. These guys get back to doing what they do. Because we're a very good baseball team on the road. Which is what is relieving me of a lot more worry in terms of playing the next 2 in Minnesota against a Twins team that is now feeling the momentum and seeing an opportunity to dethrone the king. People live for that shit. Athletes, competitors, especially at the professional level, when you play the best, you bring your A game. This is why defending a championship is so challenging. Guys see the Astros uniform and they go, these guys are great. I better play my best. I want to beat them. That would really be something, wouldn't it, if we could beat the champs? That's how the Twins are thinking right now. And now they've drawn a little blood, seen a little weakness. Also, it's a 7-game series. Well, it's a 3-game series now, technically, but you know what I'm saying. Best of 3 in Minnesota, starting the first 2 in Minnesota. I mean, here's the fucking scary thing. That could have been our last home game of the season, game 2. I don't think it will be, because I think we take at least 1 in Minnesota. But you want to get this thing taken care of as quickly as possible, man. The Rangers are up 2-0 on the fucking Orioles. We don't want them to get a whole bunch of rest and us have to battle out a 7-game series. So it's just, it was not a good game 2. It was not a good game 2. You were left with a sour taste in our mouth going to Minnesota. Obviously, more upside. All these guys have been there before. The Astros know what they're doing. There's a ton of veteran postseason experience on this team. And you got to hope they pull it together. Also, Javier looked very good in his last 2 starts of the season. So I've got a little faith that he'll be better than Framber at least. At least be within like 6 inches of the spot. Framber, 3 feet off. Jesus, dude. So somebody's got to, we all just collectively need to pray Framber Valdez gets better. Because that can't be it. That can't be our number 2 arm. And then we need to pray that Christian Javier comes out and brings his good stuff for game 3 in Minnesota on Tuesday at 3:07 p.m. in the afternoon, because it's not like any of us have jobs or responsibilities or bills to pay. 3 o'clock in the fucking afternoon now. Unreal. I got so much shit going on. I got to pick the kids up at 3 o'clock from school. The game starts 7 minutes later, so now I'm speeding. I'm breaking every traffic law known to man with 2 small children in the back just to try to get home so I don't miss the first pitch. I was supposed to have therapy where I let out all this anger and frustration about sports usually at 3:30. That's not going to happen now. 3:07 start on a fucking Tuesday. Christian Javier on the mound against Sonny Gray. And all we can do is pray that we'll be better than we were in game 2, because that is not going to get it done against anybody. The fucking Twins, the Athletics, the Royals, it doesn't matter who you play. If you don't hit and you don't pitch, baseball is fucked. You got to do one of the two. People are going, oh, how are the Rangers still winning? It's crazy. They lost their pitching. Did you pay attention to the Rangers this year? They had one of the best offenses in baseball all season long. Best in the American League most of the year. They hit. They hit no matter what. Even if there's no pitching, they will outscore you. That's what the Rangers have been doing. The Astros, you would think on paper we have the guys to get that type of a thing going. But for whatever reason, it's just been a very inconsistent hitting year for this squad. Alvarez is the only one who so far through 2 games looks incredibly consistent. Pena's been... Oh, one more thing I wanted to touch on. Jeremy Pena did a little dance on second base when we were down like 5-0. People were up in arms. What are you doing? How could you dance at a time like this? Ah! Boomers' heads were exploding. First of all, I get it. I'm not hating. I get the argument. You don't want to see... What are you doing? It's not the time. Here's the thing you need to understand about baseball. Very grueling game at times. You're sitting in the dugout, powerless, watching other guys hit, watching other guys field, watching other guys pitch. You're just sitting, you're watching, you're waiting, you're hoping. Easy to get down, easy to lose your energy, lose your focus, lose your mental edge. This is why they want baseball teams, they need to be having fun. They need to have team chemistry. They need to be picking each other up. You see all these guys get to second base when they hit doubles and they do like their stupid little, sign or whatever. Some guys, it used to be like a claw for the Rangers. Some dudes throw up the fucking heart. Some get to salute. They got all kinds of different things. They do fist bumping themselves and then the dugout. They got all kinds of shit they do. Why would that be different down 5-0 in the postseason? I loved what Jeremy Pena did here because he's saying, let's fucking get it going. We know who we are. We can do this. Also, ALCS and World Series MVP during his rookie season. Last year when we won the World Series gives him the right to dance however the fuck he pleases. Also, he kind of looks like a stripper. What's the difference? Let him do a little stripper move at second base. I get both sides of the argument. I'm just telling you why it's totally acceptable and fine what he did. He's trying to get the other dudes on the team riled the fuck up so that they'll do something. Because we're down 5-0. And he's a young leader. So he's 24, man. So let him dance. It'd be different. If he was 30 years old, some grizzled veteran, it'd be a little weird if he did the humpy dance. I've also just never seen anybody fuck the air at second base before, so I was incredibly entertained by that. I'm just saying, that is not the thing to get hung up on over this game. If you want to be mad or frustrated with somebody, it's Framber. And it's the fans who booed Carlos Correa. Focus on those two things. We got enough negative shit to focus on. You don't need to be focused on Jeremy Pena with the Shakira hips. All right? Game 3, Tuesday, 3:07 p.m. Damn it. In Minnesota. We'll see how this next one goes. Obviously, just to close it on a positive, I still have the utmost faith in this squad to get the job done. That was a shitty game, too. Today's episode is brought to you by MyBookie. If you're looking for a sports book to call home, why not try the one supporting your favorite Houston sports podcast? Make your money work smarter, not harder, with MyBookie. Celebrate your winning season with MyBookie's biggest welcome offer ever, which has been extended through this week. A 110% deposit match on your first deposit. You heard that right. You can make more than double your money before you even place a bet by making a deposit with MyBookie. Stipulations obviously apply, but all you have to do is go to mybookie.ag, use our promo code BTC as in banging the can, and you will claim that 110% deposit match on your first deposit. But, as I said, make sure to act quick because this offer is only available for a limited time, and you can get it only with our code BTC. With a full slate of NFL and college football on top of playoff baseball, there are plenty of options to bet and win, so don't be the guy who missed out. Bet anything, anytime, from anywhere, only with MyBookie. Great website, great mobile experience as well. You can do it through your phone, get on your computer, whatever device you've got going, make it work. MyBookie.ag, code BTC when you sign up to support our podcast and receive that 110% deposit match on your first deposit. MyBookie.ag, code BTC. Weird game from the Texans against the Atlanta Falcons. A weird one. We had every opportunity to win. Definitely one that feels like we should have won. Again, this is kind of a low-stakes season for Texans fans, and I think we all need to do a better job of appreciating that because, I was not upset that we lost this game. Was it kind of a bummer? Yes. I bet Texans money line, so I was, financially hurting. But we're not going to win the Super Bowl this year is what I'm saying. It's a low-stakes season. I say it every week. I'll say it again. What do we want to see? Progress, growth, right? Well, we're still seeing that in a lot of the right places, in particular with C.J. Stroud. But too many field goals this game. Have to be better in the red zone if you want to win in the NFL. Everybody knows that. This is not a brain buster. You got to convert when you're in the red zone. You got to walk away with 6, not 3. You do 3 too many times, and suddenly you find yourself in a position like the Texans did on Sunday against the Falcons. And in the end, just not enough defense. The Falcons win the game on a walk-off field goal. But we got to see C.J. Stroud in one of these late-game, high-pressure, must-score situations. Drove the ball right down the field, looked as poised as he has the rest of the season. I mean, he was great. Continues to be great. Not quite enough in the red zone. Early on in the game in particular, when we went 3 field goals in a row to get up to 9 points right there, right? But all in all, C.J. Stroud continues to look like the guy we can all hang our hats on and know is going to get we're going to be in every game we play, I think, as a result of this kid. More history for C.J. Stroud, though, if you're looking for more positives after a loss. He is now the only player in NFL history ever to reach 1,200 career passing yards without an interception in his first 4 games. No interceptions. 4 games played, right? Well, I guess 5 now. We were 2-2. Now we're 2-3. Still no interceptions. And he's on pace to shatter Andrew Luck's 2012 passing record for rookie quarterbacks. He also passed Dak Prescott for the most pass attempts without an interception to start his career. 177. So CJ is still doing what I think at this point we just expect from him to do. But we're going to need other guys to, step up. This game felt like we weren't playing with quite the sense of urgency we should have. Some people chalk that up to we had some starting offensive linemen return. Maybe they felt like a little less pressure. We're going to be up against it every week. I mean, that's, again, it is the NFL. Any given Sunday, any team can win. You never really know what's going to happen. It's a crazy fucking league. But I do believe CJ gives us an opportunity to at least be in every game we play, which is big. We're 1 game off the lead in the division now because the Colts won. But CJ did he did his thing still. It wasn't the most painful Texans game any of us have ever had to watch. That's for damn sure. But a sad loss, one that we feel like we should have had. But in this year, where it's low stakes, I'll live. I'll be okay. Much more focused on the Astros right now and Game 3 tomorrow, Tuesday, in Minnesota. Again, you got takes on the Astros? Call 888-203-2339. Leave a voicemail on the Banging the Can voicemail hotline. You got takes on the Texans? 888-203-2339. Same thing applies for the Rockets. I'm not really a Dynamo guy. If you want to talk Dynamo on the hotline, if you drop a great take, I'll still play the call. But I probably won't have much to say in response because I don't watch. So I'm useless. And I'm sorry for that. But I've got too much going on with the Astros, the Texans, and the Rockets. 888-203-2339. Call the hotline. That will do it for today's show. But remember, every episode of Banging the Can is available on youtube.com/@bangingthecan for those of you who would prefer to watch rather than just listen. youtube.com/@bangingthecan. Frankly, even if you're an audio podcast person, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and you want to help out the show, still go to youtube.com/@bangingthecan and subscribe. Again, full video of every episode available there on YouTube. Also, short clips, YouTube shorts from every episode. If like one day you're like, oh, I don't have 30 minutes to watch or whatever, fine, you can absorb some of the short clips there. They're also available on social media at Banging the Can on TikTok, Twitter, Threads, and Instagram at Banging the Can. Follow us everywhere. Please share the most unapologetic Houston sports show in existence with your friends and family. Support our sponsors. Today's sponsor, MyBookie. Code BTC when you deposit at mybookie.ag, your first deposit. You use that code BTC, you'll receive a 110% deposit bonus. Thank you to MyBookie for supporting the show, and thank you to those of you who are supporting the show by using MyBookie as your sports betting outlet. Check out my media startup, Bolen Media, at bolenmedia.com. My comedy show, The Ross Bolen Podcast, available wherever you consume Banging the Can. I'm Ross Bolen. Follow me on Twitter. I tweet a lot, say a lot of things on the Twitter machine, X, formerly known as Twitter. Instagram, same handle, at WRBOLEN. I'll probably be back later in the week, would be my guess. Maybe twice if there are a lot of hotline calls. 888-203-2339. We play Tuesday and Wednesday, the Astros do, in Minnesota. So in all likelihood, I will be back on Thursday. Until then, H-Town, keep your heads up, but stay down.